Huh, over 100,000 deaths from prescription drugs every year. You'd think with all the stringent testing the FDA does before it lets a drug out onto the market, they'd detect some of these life-threatening side effects.
These are the bottles which finally will find their way to doctors' offices and clinics all over the country. Even as they reach the end of the production line, other tests are in progress and samples are sent to the government. The manufacturer's protocol is first reviewed, then subjected to a whole battery of complex scientific tests.
The FDA's whole system of drug review is bogus. It's designed to protect and advance the interests of the drug industry. A lot of people don't realize this, but FDA never tests the drugs it approves. FDA does no independent testing at all. It relies entirely on the testing done by the drug advocate, the proponent of the drug application that has a self-interest and a conflict of interest. That party is looked to for all of the drug testing. They do their own testing.
So the FDA does no independent testing of the drugs it approves. But with so many new drugs being manufactured, can you blame them for outsourcing the testing to the drug companies themselves? After all, if you can't trust a multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical conglomerate, who can you trust?
There have been multiple instances of corruption in this process where negative information has been kept away from the FDA so that the FDA will approve a drug. In fact, Sanofi Aventis, with its drug T-Tech, relied principally on a clinical trial that FDA's medical reviewers, who are sharp on the case, discovered didn't even happen. They made it up. And there were FBI investigations and prosecutions. But what did the FDA do? The medical reviewers said to the commissioner, gee, they relied on a fraud for this application. We should deny it. But the FDA commissioner granted it. He put T-Tech into the market. So you see, it's that degree of influence and corruption that makes it impossible for the American people to be protected.
With drugs being approved by the FDA, despite the objection of their own medical reviewers, there can be little doubt the revolving door is alive and well in the pharmaceutical industry. And just in case you do have some tiny shred of doubt remaining, consider the case of Billy Tauzin. You may want to have some anti-nausea pills on standby.
Congressman Billy Tauzin, who was the head of the Energy and Commerce Committee in the House, he was the man assigned the task of ensuring that a provision would be put into the law that would prevent the entire government from negotiating down the per unit price of drugs required to be acquired under Medicare Part D based on volume. So in other words, they're forced to pay whatever price the drug industry sets per unit for the drugs purchased under Medicare Part D. And that is something that could enable the drug industry at its will to bring the nation to its knees financially. And so it is that this provision was put into the law in the Bush administration. Tauzin left the government, left his position in Congress, became the head of the Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers Association, and made the highest salary they had ever then paid to that date, $2.5 million a year, as a compliment for his selling out the nation to protect the drug industry.